I had read something where, you know, breaking down of the weeds in the lake and stuff will, produce foam.
Yeah,
And so,
the
because I see a lot
decomposition.
more in the fall. You know, when
Yeah,
they
there's a
start
lot
to
in
break
fall.
down. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just decomposing, and that creates a lot of different like molecules from all the things breaking down, and that can create just substances that trap air and then create tiny bubbles, and then that builds into foam.
Yeah, I just was gonna ask, is there regular testing then going on for the water of Duck Lake?
There is not. We, obviously there's a lot of water in Michigan, so we don't have the resources to sample every single lake every single year, but we do have a rotational watershed sampling, and we focus that on areas of concern. And so, like I said, I've recommended this to that group, and so it's on their list, so the next.
Do you think within the next year,
I'm not
2024?
sure if it would be in the next year. The watersheds are on a 5-year rotating basis, so I think it would be in the next 3 years at least.
But there is this site that is contaminated, that when they weren't, testing of the lake.
Well, like I said, it's on the rotating, but anyone can sample any water if they would like to, and it sounds like there's resources available to get that done.
We do, we're working on it. If anyone from Eagle wants to, I called up and asked about the foam, and they were explaining how the foam can contain a huge amount of PFAS. They did an experiment a few years ago, I think 2017, where they tested the water right next to the foam. The foam was very high in PFAS, and then the water right next to it won't have it, and it's just the very nature of PFAS, why they were invented in the first place. Also keeps it in that little, that area, so it's not like, you know, you would be testing next to the foam and you'd get a high result and then it would go down. It just seems like it's very different. And it has to do, they started talking about the structure of bubbles and that, which goes over my head, but it's, that was very interesting. But we are definitely on top of it. The only thing is it's so expensive to test foam because it's harder on the instrument. Usually because the numbers are so much higher than in water, you have to recalibrate your instrument. You have to use different standards, and I just heard it was hard on the instrument.
Yeah.
So I think the bigger bang for the buck would be testing the foam, but we did get a grant through the Ecology Center, and Fruitland Township has some funds available for the watershed group to look into it as well, so we can go on. And I'm still asking for advice on, you know, what to test and how to test foam versus water and that, but yeah, it's definitely something we're keeping an eye on right now. So.
Yeah, and we recommend that you don't sample foam. We don't have any standards for foam. That's kind of, I don't know, foam, it comes and goes, and so we really recommend that you just sample the water, because that's more informative, and we can talk about that more.
Yeah.
I want to reiterate too, Matt, you mentioned too, but I'm Jay, I'm with MRD Eagle also. We are taking an iterative approach too. We're following where the data is leading us, and right now, based on the very limited data that they have from the water wells, it doesn't appear to be making it all the way to the creek or the lake. So, but we're keeping an eye on that as he does his birth water profiling and does the groundwater sampling. That'll tell us more, you know, and then if it heads that way, then they'll make sure to keep an eye on that.
My name's Dave Paquette. I'm with the Duck Lake Riparian Association, and when this first came up, we've begun some testing on our side for PFAS, and so we're going to do 3 just to get a baseline. One, to see if there's any issues, which I'm sure there probably aren't, but to do some baseline work. So we've had we're going to have 3 different locations. One is done, has come back negative. We have 2 more that we're doing. There's a lab in town that we're using, Trace Analytical. Takes about 3 weeks. It's about $425. It's not cheap, but it's not that much. It's $425. So we've got 1 set of results back about 2 days ago. We'll have 2 more, and we're doing 3 different locations on the south, or on the south side of the lake. So we'll share that The report you get back is like
Yeah.
20 pages.
Hard to
But,
read, isn't it? And those are water samples, you said?
Pardon me?
Those are water samples?
Well, and the procedure for doing that,
Yes.
is, you know, you gotta take a short class on it.
Yeah.
But it's, you wear rubber gloves and blah, 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 you have to, take the water sample in very quickly. I mean, there's a whole protocol in doing that, so.
Dave, is that with water samples from the lake, or are they from?
From well, we're doing well water,
Okay,
so,
So those are residential wells that you're
Yes.
collecting? Okay, thanks, good to know. Matt?
Yeah, just a comment, for everyone's benefit. I think the Eagle folks and Alan Hinks will confirm, I'm not an engineer, but, you know, as a general rule, right, you have the landfill, and any PFAS contamination is gonna go with the groundwater. It's not airborne, it doesn't jump, it can't swim upstream or cross stream. So that's the point of doing the downgrading investigation. So you start at the source and you trace it out, and that's what Alan's talking about. A lot of times what you'll see is when folks start sampling, you might find something half a mile away and upstream that wouldn't likely be from a landfill. You know, science tells you that it's not a likely source. The same thing might be true for Duck Lake. You know, we might get to the point where we're sampling that, but you know, Duck Lake, by way of example, is part of a bigger watershed. So PFAS that gets released anywhere, you know, in that watershed could end up in that stream. And what I think you tend to see, and I think the Eagle folks will probably confirm, is what I see is that, you know, there's a lot of PFAS everywhere in rivers, streams, even farm fields where biosolids were applied. So background is a term I know no one likes to use, but you know, it's not uncommon to see low level, because you're measuring in parts per trillion as opposed to parts per million or parts per billion, which is what's used for most other contaminants. So levels of PFAS that would be a trace amount for any other contamination can trip a cleanup criteria. So when you see it, you know, it could mean that the source is, you know, a small amount of PFAS, of pure PFAS in the parts per trillion can contaminate a real large area and still be above cleanup criteria. So, you know, as sampling occurs and you start finding other sources, you know, there might be other sources besides the landfill. So if there is PFAS contamination in Duck Lake, it doesn't mean it came from the landfill. It doesn't mean it didn't either, but, you know, it's almost, you know, there are always other potential sources that you need to look for back in the environment. So I understand everyone is anxious to sample and be comfortable with, you know, make sure that there's not an issue on their property. But as you see those results, I just ask you to keep that in mind.
Anything else? We've been a wonderful audience. Thank you for being here and your time and attention. And please reach out anytime you have questions.
I just wanted to, I know it was mentioned before, but thank Jeff for picking up on this and bringing it to the board's attention. And I appreciate them being proactive on it, because I don't know if I speak for anybody else, but I love having well water and the taste of it and not having to, you know, to buy it and have it chlorinated. And so I want to I don't want to live any place where I can't drink well water, frankly. So, so thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it very much.
All right, well, thank you all. Have a good night, drive safely.
Thank you.